In 2021, in Baltimore, Maryland, 28-year-old Jamaria Hall was raising her two children, 6-year-old Denaria Thomas and 8-year-old Davin, on her own after separating from the children's father. Jamaria had a troubled background. In 2018, she was convicted of arson after she deliberately set fire to her parents' apartment while her children were still inside, putting their lives in danger. Despite this serious offense, she served only a year in jail and was subsequently granted custody of her children once again. As time went on, her behavior continued to deteriorate. She became increasingly argumentative, and her conduct toward her children grew progressively more troubling and unstable. Tragically, her two children were last seen alive on August 19, 2021. Then, on August 24, 2021, residents of the Coventry Road apartment complex in southwest Baltimore complained about a strong, unpleasant smell coming from Jamaria Hall's apartment that could no longer be ignored. A maintenance worker entered the unit to investigate and made a horrifying discovery. 6-year-old Denaria Thomas was found dead in the bathtub, showing clear signs of having been strangled. 8-year-old Davin was discovered deceased inside a sleeping bag, having been stabbed in the chest. Both children's remains were already decomposing, indicating that they had been dead for several days. Jamaria Hall, who was legally responsible for the children, was not present at the scene. Detectives quickly launched an investigation into the deaths, and what they uncovered shocked the community. This is the story of how a mother was connected to the murder of her own children. Jamaria Hall, born on September 11, 1992, to Brenda Hall, lived in the Coventry Homes apartment complex in Baltimore, Maryland. She was raising her two children, Denaria Thomas and Davin Thomas Jr., alone after separating from their father, who was largely absent from their lives. The children were well-liked in the community, often playing outside, interacting kindly with neighbors, and spending time with their grandparents, who adored them. Hall, despite being a single mother, appeared determined to provide them a good life. However, Hall had a troubled past. In 2018, she was charged with arson and child endangerment after setting her parents' apartment on fire with her children inside. She had disabled smoke detectors, burned family photos, and fled with the children, who were then 3 and 5 years old. Initially denying responsibility, she later confessed during police questioning. While out on bail, Hall disappeared with the children, triggering a 48-hour search. They were eventually found when Hall checked into Johns Hopkins Hospital, citing hallucinations and paranoia. The children were placed temporarily with relatives while Hall was hospitalized. Hall was sentenced to 1 year in jail for the arson. During her incarceration, her children stayed with their grandparents. In 2019, Hall sought and regained custody of the children, providing proof of anger management completion, stable housing, and mental health treatment. Despite family objections, the court ruled in her favor. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Hall recorded a light-hearted podcast with her kids, but neighbors soon noticed her behavior deteriorating. Arguments became frequent, and she was often seen sitting in a car with the children for hours. Eventually, the man she was seen with disappeared, and the children appeared withdrawn. Neighbors saw her discard their beds and noticed their declining demeanor. Around August 10th, neighbors began noticing a change in Jamaria Hall's already withdrawn behavior. One neighbor, who would occasionally greet her, recalled seeing Hall sitting silently in her parked car at 3 a.m., staring blankly ahead with the engine turned off. When the neighbor waved, Hall didn't respond or even acknowledge the gesture. The neighbor described her demeanor as vacant, as though no one was present within her. On August 15th, the maintenance supervisor for the apartment complex encountered Hall while responding to a plumbing issue in a nearby unit. He described her as appearing distressed and talking rapidly about people watching her apartment. When he tried to calm her by assuring her of the building's security, she walked away mid-conversation without further explanation. The last verified sighting of her two children alive was on August 19th, 2021. Tragically, on August 24th, 2021, residents at the Coventry Road apartment complex in southwest Baltimore reported a strong, foul odor coming from Hall's unit, an odor that could not be ignored. When a maintenance worker entered the apartment to investigate, he found 6-year-old Denaria Thomas dead in the bathtub with visible signs of strangulation. 8-year-old Davin was found deceased inside a sleeping bag, stabbed in the chest. Both children's bodies showed signs of decomposition, indicating that they had been dead for several days. Their mother and legal guardian, Jamaria Hall, was not at the scene. The discovery of the children's bodies shocked the community, which was left in grief and desperate for answers. Detectives launched an immediate investigation into the killings. During their inquiries, they learned that on August 19th, 5 days before the bodies were discovered, neighbors had heard alarming sounds from Hall's apartment, including screaming and one particularly chilling cry. A resident named Ray Cherry told investigators he had been awakened around 11:30 p.m. by the sounds of children screaming and struggling from the apartment below. He said it sounded like someone was picking up the children while they cried. Ray distinctly recalled hearing one child pleading, "Mommy, no," and another little boy sobbing through the floor. After that, he heard nothing more. With 28-year-old Jamaria Hall identified as the main suspect, the police launched a manhunt. Detectives urgently worked to track her whereabouts. Hall was soon located in an Uber headed toward Baltimore County. On August 25, 2021, just 1 day after the children's bodies were found, she was apprehended by the Regional Auto Theft Task Force. During questioning following her arrest, Hall confessed to killing her own children. In the days leading up to her arrest, Hall had told conflicting stories. She told her mother that the children were with their father. However, the children's father, distraught and confused, informed police that he hadn't seen them. Instead, he had encountered Hall wandering the streets, yelling and cursing, and appearing to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. As investigators dug deeper, it became clear there had been warning signs all along. Hall had a troubled history, including a 2018 conviction for arson. That year, she had set fire to her parents' apartment while her children were inside, endangering their lives. Despite this, after serving just 1 year in jail, she regained custody of the children. This raised questions about how such a serious offense did not prevent her from reclaiming her parental rights. As the case progressed, focus turned to understanding her psychological condition. Following her arrest, Hall was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with charges for first-degree assault and reckless endangerment. The family of the 2 young victims was left devastated by the magnitude of the tragedy. As investigators wrapped up their work, the legal process began. In late August 2021, Hall appeared in court. Held without bail, her public defender requested a psychological evaluation to assess her mental state, which the judge approved, scheduling a follow-up for early September. Even as legal proceedings advanced, the community's grief and outrage only deepened. By June 2022, the case became more complex. Conflicting psychiatric evaluations led to uncertainty about Hall's mental condition. While Hall claimed to be suffering from psychosis, medical professionals concluded that she did not have a psychotic disorder and instead believed she was fabricating her symptoms. This revelation undermined her defense's claim that she was not criminally responsible for the murders. Her attorneys argued that Hall was in desperate need of mental health treatment, access to medication, and proper care. They depicted her as someone failed by the system, a system that hadn't provided the help she needed. Despite these arguments, the court ruled that Hall was competent to stand trial, though she remained hospitalized for ongoing treatment. From her deteriorating mental state to her erratic behavior and history of violence, many warning signs had gone unaddressed. In response, Baltimore's mayor called for a comprehensive review of the case to identify and close systemic gaps. However, for many, the call for reform came too late. The tragedy had already occurred. By November 2022, the case neared trial. A court hearing explored possible plea agreements, but no offers had yet been formalized. Both sides awaited further evaluations of Hall's psychological health while preparing for what was expected to be an emotional and lengthy trial. The original trial date was set for December 5, 2022, but logistical issues arose. Hall was unable to attend the hearing due to transportation problems from the Maryland Correctional Institute for Women. As a result, the hearing was postponed, with no new date immediately confirmed. These repeated delays caused frustration among both the court and the public. People were desperate for answers that remained elusive. Throughout this period, Hall's mental health was at the center of legal debates. Her defense claimed she was not criminally responsible due to her history of hallucinations and delusional thinking. This argument became pivotal in the case. The defense aimed to prove Hall's mental illness, while prosecutors argued that the murders stemmed from rage, not psychosis. They pointed to Hall's strained relationship with her children's father, tensions with her own mother, and financial hardship. Until these mental health evaluations were resolved, the trial remained in limbo. By mid-2023, the court started pushing for movement. Judge Melissa Finn expressed her irritation with ongoing delays and urged both sides to proceed. She set a hearing for August 4th, during which the trial was officially rescheduled for October 2nd, 2023. The defense estimated that the trial would last about 10 days. Just as the case seemed to be progressing, another setback occurred. The rollout of Maryland's electronic courts (MD) system caused court closures, delaying the trial until June 2024. Although these delays were frustrating, they provided additional time for gathering evidence and expert analysis. In April 2024, Hall entered a guilty plea to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of first-degree child abuse. Despite this, she continued to claim that she was not criminally responsible. Prosecutors opposed the NCR plea, citing evidence that indicated the killings were premeditated. Investigators found signs at the scene that Hall had intended to set the apartment on fire to destroy evidence. They also discovered a letter referencing her child custody struggles, hinting at the pressure she was under. Still, her legal team argued that her deteriorating mental condition was the true cause of the murders. In June 2024, the court rendered a verdict. Based on medical assessments, Hall was found not criminally responsible for the deaths of her children. She was committed to a hospital for intensive psychiatric care and ongoing supervision. The ruling sparked mixed reactions. For some, it acknowledged her mental illness. For others, it fell far short of delivering justice for 2 innocent lives lost. The judge clarified that Hall's release would be contingent on medical evaluations of her progress. If released, she would be required to stay on psychiatric medication, continue treatment, and refrain from using drugs or alcohol. Yet, even with these conditions, the emotional wounds from the case would remain. During the proceedings, the children's father addressed the court, pleading for recognition of the pain he had endured. He had lost his children in the most horrific way. For him and his family, the system's failures were undeniable. They asked the questions that many were thinking. Why were the children returned to Hall after her arson conviction in 2018? Could this unspeakable tragedy have been prevented if someone had intervened earlier?